In the Catholic Church, why can't women become priests? That's the question we are asking today. If you read the Gospels, you recognize that Jesus had a lot of different followers, and probably his best followers were all women. We hear about Mary Magdalene and Mary, the wife of Clopas, and different people that followed Jesus. They were the ones that stayed with him even at his crucifixion. They were the ones that were there, the first witnesses of his resurrection. So it's obvious that women had and continue to have a very important role in the history of Christianity and in the Christian church. So that always begs the question, then why are only men priests in the Catholic Church? And really, we see that it's because of the nature of what priests are called to do. On the night of the Last Supper, Jesus took his 12 disciples, and of course, Judas left that night to betray him. So those 11 disciples, his apostles, and he washed their feet. And washing feet was not only a sign of service, it was also part of an ordination ritual for the Old Testament priesthood. And as Jesus did that, he gives them the Last Supper. On the night of the Last Supper, he gives them his body and blood, and he tells them that they must continue to do that in memory of him. So he empowers them to continue what we call the celebration of Mass. Also in that same upper room, after his resurrection, after those same disciples, those apostles had abandoned him, the women hadn't, Jesus meets again with those apostles and breathes the Holy Spirit upon them and says that whose sins you forgive are forgiven them. He empowers them to forgive sins, which is also one of those priestly actions that Jesus embodies and priests continue in union with Jesus. So the reason why Jesus called men and not women is definitely not because men are better than women or holier than women, but because they're called to embody in a particular way the person of Jesus. Jesus who came into this world as a man in order to save all of humanity from their sins. So priests, sinful though we are, continue Jesus' role as the bridegroom in his marriage to the church, and so we're called to embody that in our very bodies, but also as a father to all those who are baptized, which is why we call priests father, because they generate spiritual children in and through the sacraments of the church that they celebrate. So the reason why we don't have women priests is because Jesus is the one who gives us the priesthood. It's not something that we invent on our own, and so we have to, in being faithful to Jesus, only men continue that ministry. That also calls us to recognize and uphold and celebrate the genius of women, as St. John Paul II would talk about, the genius of women within the church, that their gifts and their talents and their leadership within the church must be cultivated and celebrated, and that becomes a complement to the ministry of priests. So as we think about that, an all-male priesthood, it also should call us to recognize that every single one of the baptized, every man, woman, and child has been made for glory.